We talk about the 70 period, we call it the periods of Bible history several times, and we've used it a few times. It's going to have a little different twist to them. I'm just trying to think about something extra to go through the first part of it a little bit this morning. And if you know the books of the Bible, Old Testament, make it easier for you. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, like that. So let's think about this morning as we look at these periods. Everybody knows the flood, scattering, the patriarch, Exodus, the first one's there. Let's look at putting some scripture with us. So where is the before the flood found? Well, it's in Genesis 1 and 5. And this is a very rare to the front end because the first 4 periods, are all covered in Genesis. So you got 4 periods in one book. That's very strange, but the rest of the way it's going to be multiple books per period. So we got 4 periods in one book. So before the flood is the first 5 chapters of Genesis. So the flood's going to be the next 5 chapters. We got 5 and 5. So Genesis 6 through 10, the flood's found. Then we got the oddity of the period called the scattering people. It's in Genesis chapter 11. One chapter. And then the patriarchs finishes up the rest of the book of Genesis. 12 through 15. So we got 4 periods covered in the book of Genesis. First 5 chapters, before the flood. Next 5 chapters, 6 through 10. Talk about the flood, scattering people, Tower of Babel, chapter 11. And then patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. And then the story of Joseph getting into the Exodus is in 12 through 15. Then Genesis, the next book is Exodus. So Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, the first part of Numbers, chapter 1 through 13, are involved with the Exodus. So now we're going to nice in order. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers. So we go to the next periods then. Part of the wilderness, the conquest, judges, United Kingdom, where we are now. Let's figure out how they go. So we got the rest of the book of Numbers, 14 through 36. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. That's starting off in Joshua. First 5 chapters of Joshua are the water in the wilderness. What was Joshua's main purpose? Joshua himself was to lead the people in and conquer the land. So the rest of the book of Joshua covers the invasion and conquest. Everything's in nice, logical order so far. Then we get to Judges, and boy, that one's easy to start off with there. Get the book of Judges, Ruth, and just a little bit into 1 Samuel. Because in 1 Samuel chapter 8, the people did what? They wanted a king, right? So we started off this quarter. Our study here for the United Kingdom. So everything's in order up there. So then the United Kingdom comes in, and we have the rest of the book of 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, and the first part of 1 Kings. So everything there is in nice, logical, chronological order with the names of where the books are in the Old Testament. Now, one little twist to it now that gets a little complicated. This is where the hard part starts. There's a parallel story of the United Kingdom given in the book of 1st and 2nd Chronicles. So it doesn't take the place of 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, and 1 Kings, but it's a parallel to it. So we call it the B chapter, the B plan, if you want to go through there. So we get 1 Chronicles 10 through 2 Chronicles chapter 9. It's also involved in the United Kingdom. So we'll go through these again several times. I just want to introduce it. A lot of you know this already, but it's a good thing to know before you go find where these things are. So let's break ours down now. This quarter will be in United Kingdom, the first half. Next quarter is the second half of it. We'll go up to about the story of David and Bathsheba this quarter. So Saul, we're looking at now, is in 1 Samuel. We actually started in chapter 8 for this quarter. Saul's private anointing is in chapter 9. So he actually becomes king publicly in chapter 10. So we'll say 1 Samuel 10 through the rest of 1 Samuel. It's a period covered by Saul. David is essentially the book of 2 Samuel. That's pretty simple. And then Solomon, which we'll get to in the next quarter, the 1 Kings, first part, first 11 chapter. Now, remember there's a parallel part to it. So Saul is in First Chronicles chapter 10. We That one chapter talks about Saul. David picks up there and goes 1 Chronicles 11 through 29. And Solomon, the 2 Chronicles, first 9 chapters. So that's how this United Kingdom part breaks out. And we'll do some more with the rest of it later on, and I'll put this back up when tonight we'll run through it again right at the beginning. If we get through early today, we'll hit it again or something. So, all right, let's get into this more stuff. There we go. This morning we're in 1 Samuel 23, the last half of chapter 23 and all of chapter 24. So turn to 1 Samuel 23, if you will, so we can crank up today. 1 Samuel 23, starting in verse 15, and then we've got all of chapter 24 this morning. All right, let's get a map, a little different map than we've been using. I did this one, it puts the whole territory in there, so you kind of get used to now the whole area of Palestine. We're looking at here in the land of Canaan. We've been centered in on this part down to the south for now. Here's Gibeah, Saul's hometown. Jerusalem, it's in Nob, where we talked about the priest. Without the Elon Valley to Gath over here where David was, with the Philistines. Here's Adullam, Keilah, that we had last time in our story, the cave of Adullam. Then he went up and rescued the people of Keilah from the attack of the Philistines. So that was here. Today we're going to be looking at these areas down in here. Here is En-Gedi, right over on the coast of the Dead Sea. Spring there, we'll get to that a little later on. There's also Maon, M-A-O-N, will be in there, almost this area down there. So we're down this wilderness, all this wilderness area down in here. And so here's a little better map of that area down there. We're going to start off today in Horesh. All right, here's Adullam, we were last time. Here's Keilah. Here's Jerusalem way up here. Down this mountain ridge here, Bethlehem, Hebron, we're in Horesh. We'll also get into the other side, Maon, and then En-Gedi is over here on the coast. So notice the terrain here. Mountain ridge down through here, dropping off from better than 2,000 feet high here down to 1,300 feet below sea level. So really going almost straight down. You get up through here. Okay. All right. Ready to read verses, 13 and 14, chapter 23, if you would there. This is the last two verses of what we had last time, and that'll kind of get us a running start into our study today. Okay. Okay, Saul's obsession. We're going to see more and more of it as we go through the next several chapters here. Killing David. He's got to get rid of David. That's his thrust here. So if you left Keilah, they got out of there and it scattered out and went out, and now Saul is trying to find him to get to him. So David now is at Horesh, down in the wilderness of Ziph. That's that rugged, mountainous country. We'll see some pictures of it here in a minute. And Saul's looking for him, but Jonathan comes down to see him, Saul's son, that we've talked about having a very, very close relationship with David. He comes down and finds David, and he strengthens him, encourages him, and what's Jonathan tell him about the kingship? But it's going to be you, and I'll be right there by your side. Jonathan knows he's not going to be king. And so even though he knows that fact, he's still, we'll talk about this a little later, there's no jealousy, there's no animosity on his part toward David. They're very, very close friends. He said, you'll be king, I'll be right there by your side. It doesn't turn out quite that way.
But that's what Jonathan wants here. Again, they renew their covenant they have with each other, and then Jonathan leaves, and David stays there in the wilderness and is hiding, if you will. Okay. Yeah, I think Fred mentioned that. And Jonathan also points out, Freddie said, that Jonathan said, and my father knows that you're going to be king too. Now, there's been no public proclamation of David being king. He was anointed by Samuel in Bethlehem, but nothing public about it yet. And so, but Jonathan does point out that David knows that too there as well. So, the people down there, Jonathan's gone back home. The people around Ziph down there then, still loyal to their king, until they go tell Saul that David is down here in our territory. Okay, we know where he is. You come when you're ready, and we'll deliver him into your hands. We'll tell you where he is. We'll help you find him. We know where he is down in that area down there. So Saul, what did Saul tell them? Blessings from who? From the Lord. Mike in his slides here said, not. Yeah. What was blessing the Lord about what Saul said to the Ziphites here? Nothing. That was Saul saying, okay. You're blessed by the Lord for coming and telling me this. No, don't think so. So he tells them, says, you go back and you find out. And I kind of like, I've been looking at the English Standard Version. I'm not sure what the others say, but I kind of look like what it says. He says, you go back, find out where his foot is. But you go find out exactly where he is, because I've been told he's very, very crafty on that David. So you go back and find out exactly where he is, and then I'll come down and you can hand him over to me. So they leave and go back. The Ziphites do go back and find exactly where David is hiding in that wilderness down there. So they moved around some. They're now in this area down around Maon, which shows you on the map a minute ago. And Saul and his men come down and they start looking for him. And David's told about it. Word gets to David about it there. And so David goes to a rock in the desert there. And we get, not strange, you have a rock here named this, a rock here named that. You see some terrains in the pictures in a minute. And all it is rocks. So that's all it is in that desert area down there. So we'll look at some pictures in a minute and see that. But when David's there in the wilderness of Maon, hiding from Saul, Saul's coming to look for him. That's when he stops. And I said before, I don't know if he actually writes Psalms 54 or these Psalms in these places, or if he thinks back on them later in his life, what was going on in his life, and writes them there. But let's read Psalms 54, because it fits right in here with David as he's hiding in the wilderness, and Saul's coming to look for him. Rob, you got Psalm 54? Can you read that?
Save me, O God, by your name, and vindicate me by your strength. Hear my prayer, O God. Give ear to the words of my mouth. For strangers have risen up against me, and oppressors have sought after my life. They have not set God before them. Behold, God is my helper. The Lord is with those who uphold my life. He will pay my enemies for their evil. Cut them off to your truth. I will freely sacrifice to you. I will praise your name, Lord, for it is good. For he has delivered me out of all trouble, and my eye has seen his desire on my enemies.
Okay. Not unlike, excuse me, not unlike some of the other Psalms we've seen in this same time frame here with David. What's he basically doing in the first half, the first 3 verses here? What's he talking about? They're coming after him. They're looking for him. His enemies are looking for him. And it kind of lays out the picture, if you will, there. But then starting in verse 4, who's he turn to? Turn to God. And we've seen that same thing in other Psalms we've had written in the same time frame, okay? That David kind of lays out the picture in the first part of the Psalm, And then he turns and puts all his strength, all his focus on God as he looks at that, and as he gets into the latter part of the psalm. He does that same thing here in Psalm 64, as he's writing about his distress as Saul is looking for him, but then he talks about, where's my strength? Who's going to deliver me? Well, God is. That's where David's faith stays his focus all this time. Okay. Saul's come down. People of Ziph have told Saul where he is. So Saul comes down looking for David. And it says Saul and his army with him is going down one side of the mountain, and David's men are on the other side of the mountain. And again, I'll show you some pictures in a minute, but you got to picture this. You got that mountain range down through the central part of the country we talked about. But as it drops off down to the Dead Sea on one side, of course, off to the Mediterranean Sea on the other side, it's not just a smooth, nice little drop off down through there. There's gullies and valleys and mountainous areas down through there. So it not be inconceivable at all as they're going to this rugged mountain country that's a mountaintop to divide the two armies over there. So that's what's happening here. Saul's on one side, David's on the other side. And David's hurrying to get away. But then the search stops. What happens? Yeah, Saul gets a message that says, the Philistines are attacking. The Philistines are attacking our nation, the Israelite nation up there. So as much as Saul would like to get David, that's a very personal vengeance type thing. What's his responsibility overall? Well, it's just to the nation of Israel. He's the king, right? So this message comes about the Philistines attacking. He's got to leave his little private battle with David, if you will, here. He has to go see about that. So they say, come quickly. The Philistines are raiding the land. So Saul quits that, leaves David there, and then he goes back to take care of the Philistines. We'll see him come back here a little bit later on next chapter. He leaves then, and David goes over to this they call it En-Gedi. I showed you on the map earlier. It's over right on the edge of the Dead Sea down there. Now, think about the Dead Sea. It is the Dead Sea, right? Arid, nothing there, death, the word itself there. Well, this En-Gedi is a spring. It's a big, lush spring. And this water comes out of these mountains here and down to the spring. So, a picture here. This is a picture of the spring of En-Gedi. If you look, whoops, back up on it. If you look, here's the Dead Sea area. And way across the Dead Sea is the Transjordan, the big mountains over there. And you see some of this rugged land that's all around. So the oasis here because of the springs. We got a little short video. There's no sound with it. All the sound, but it's just the music. So I'm going to turn it down. Well, let's play about 3 minutes of it. It's going to show you the area around this, that David's in down here, around this En-Gedi. It's going to show you the lush waters that are coming up here. So, look at that. Jimmy can play that. Okay, get some idea of the terrain around here. The deer on the cliffs, these rocks up here walking around. That's what this whole mountainous desert wilderness area down here is like. And of course, the spring there with all the lush waters, welcome thing to people here. This, yeah. Actually, it's going to be up in a minute to 600. We're going to read here in a few minutes. Yeah, and Saul brings 3,000 with him this time. So water's, we were talking about feeding him last time. Water's just a precious thing in this wilderness area out here. So, yeah. Okay, we're down to chapter 24, and we'll get the first time when David actually spares Saul's life. We'll get into it here. So, Saul has come back now from his battle with the Philistines, from stopping that insurgents there, if you will. And he's told now that David is at Engedi, this spring area we just looked at here. And so he takes 3,000 men with him. And he goes to try to find David. This passion he's got here to get rid of David. So he goes to this place they call it the Crag of the Wild Oats, the Crag of the Rock. And you can see why from the terrain it would be certainly be called that. So there's caves all in these mountains down through here. And Saul goes into one of these caves, go to the bathroom, to relieve himself. He did not know that back in the back part of this same cave, obviously he would have chosen a different one. He didn't know that David and his men are back in the back part of this cave. So I'm sure it'd be a nice cool place, and then it's wilderness dry area down here to hide out and rest. So what did David's men see this as? Saul's coming here, we're in here. This is it, man. Okay? Go get it. And look what they say. What has the Lord done? The Lord's given Saul into your hands. They look at this as a providence type thing from God, if you will. Look, David, this is me talking to him. God has given Saul into your hands. All you got to do is go up there and kill it. This is over with. David wouldn't do that. David wouldn't do that. He doesn't go up there and secretly or stealthily, get that word out, secretly cuts off a piece of Saul's robe. So Saul laid his robe aside while he was using the bathroom there. He gets this piece of quarter robe cuts off. And even that, even cutting off a quarter of Saul's robe, bothered David. We're going to talk about why. I think it's really, really important here. I'm going to talk about this. So David tells his men, no, can't do this. The Lord forbid that I should do such a thing. To whom? To the Lord's anointed. He uses that phrase more than once here. To the Lord's anointed. So he rebukes his men for wanting to do that. Did not allow them to attack Saul. And it's all leaves, he goes on his way. But look at this phrase here. Saul was the Lord's anointed. He was the anointed king, chosen by God to be the king of Israel. He's been rejected by God. At this point in time, he is still the king of Israel. And David recognizes that. Keep that point in mind a minute. Don't tie it together something else in a minute. So David spares his life. Cut a piece of his robe off. So you got to know I was pretty close if I can do that. So he leaves, Saul does, leaves the cave, goes back out, and David comes out behind it. What does David do? Calls out to him and says, my Lord the king, and then does what? Bows down to the ground, okay? Bows down to the ground before the king. Keep that point in mind, okay? What's the lesson? I don't have this in the application at the end. But to me, there's a strong lesson here. David would not hurt the Lord's anointed. And when he appeared before him, he bowed himself to the ground. What's the lesson? He had respect for the Lord's anointed. How does that apply to us? Respect our leaders. Mike says respect the position of authority God has ordained. Okay. And as bad as we think things are in this country right now, and they are bad, and probably going to get worse, still, where does our leadership come from? Okay. God's allowed that, the leaders we have, to be in place. We have an obligation to show the proper respect to them. I think that lesson just jumps out of this right here. Jumps out. Was Saul a good guy? Saul was sorry. He disobeyed God over and over. God has rejected him from being his leader. But he's still the king. David recognized that. They would not kill him. They would not harm him because of that. He even bowed himself down to the ground, as you would to a king. Okay. All right, let's go back. I went too far here. 9 through 15 is what David said to Saul as he came out of the cave, called to him, and then bowed before him. And here's what he said to him. Who's got that? Albert, read it for us. 9 through 15. And listen to David's words as he talks to Saul about, why are you after me? Why are you doing this to me? Okay? Okay. What's David saying to Saul? He's kind of said the same thing before to him. Saul, why are you after me? What have I done? What have I done to you? Look, the Lord delivered you into my hands. I could have killed you. I didn't have a piece of your robe here. It shows how close I got to you. But I spared you because that's not what I should be doing. It's killing the Lord's anointed. And then he goes this thing and says, wickedness brings on wickedness. If I was wicked, if I was really wanted to kill you, what would I have done? I would have killed you, okay? So what are you kind of looking for? I mean, what am I that you keep searching for me and trying to come after and kill me? And that's how Saul reacts. That you, my son David? Look at Saul's reaction. Recognizing that David is more righteous than he is. What is Saul trying to do? He's trying to kill David, and he has really no reason to do it except his own grudge and his own guilt himself. Okay? He knows that. He knows that. And he says, David, you've done good. You didn't kill me. You made the right choice. I didn't. Just hunting you and trying to kill you is wrong. The Lord delivered you. David wouldn't kill you. Here's where he says again, I know that you're going to be king. So I'll recognize that. As I said earlier, that Jonathan pointed out. And Saul asked David then to do the same thing that Jonathan's already asked David to do. That is, when you're king, look after my household and my family and my descendants as he goes into the future down through there. Okay. David gives Saul an oath that he will do that. He leaves, goes home, and David returns back to the stronghold. You say, well, if David believed it, why didn't David go home too? It won't take us long to find out the answer to that. We say, stay tuned, wait till next week. Okay. So we've done exactly why David didn't go home. That's what Saul said this. All right, now this brings on Psalm 57, which is written now at the time when he's there at the cave of Saul. So let's read Psalms 57 and see how it ties into this same thing here. I know you've got a good loud voice, but reading Psalms 57 for us. Okay, look at verse 1 there again. The shadow of your wings have made my refuge. These calamities have passed by. David recognized what's going on. Verse 6, my soul is bowed down. They dug a pit before me. In the midst of themselves, how they've fallen. And then verse 7, he turns it around again. To God, my heart is steadfast. I will sing, give praises. Awake my glory. And then you get the phrase there, I will awaken the dawn. Phrase, song we have there. And he talks that reaches to God again then. This psalm here. And this distress is all around it. Okay. Comments? Thing to talk about for these chapter and a half we've had here this morning, the narrative through it. Great point. All right, if you didn't hear Albert, what he's talking about with back to the thing here with what's going on in the country, our country here now, and when he went back to Saul when he told his guards to kill the priest back at Nob, remember that? And when he brought the priest of Nob up to talk to them, and they wouldn't do that. And it was wrong. Okay. David here, wickedness begets wickedness. David would not participate in the wickedness, even though Saul was led right in his hands there. Saul is still the Lord's anointed. He's still the king. And David would not participate in that. And the lesson he's making point is for us, Albert's saying, is that there's wickedness all around us. This world now, it's our choice. We get involved in it, with our Facebook posts, our comments, what we say to our friends, our attitudes, or we stay away from it. Conduct ourselves like we ought to. Okay, a couple points on the screen up here I'll run through. We got a couple of minutes left. We'll hit them right quick, let you think about them. The first is be unselfish with your dealings with others. It makes 2 points here. Jonathan, what's Jonathan's attitude toward David? David's going to be king. Jonathan knows that. What's Jonathan's attitude toward David? He trying to kill him so he'll be the king? Absolutely not, okay? Totally unselfish attitude toward David. Then turned around the other way, and what's standing between David and the throne? At least in the eyes of the succession thing here. It'd be Jonathan, right? Jonathan's what's between him and the throne. Because he's the king's son. He would be king next. Does that bother David? No. The attitude between the two here is something to be admired, knowing the circumstance of each. And the passage up here, Abraham let Lot choose. Joseph, the way he treated his brothers. In chapter 50 here is after the death of their father. The brothers were really worried about how Joseph would come back and treat them, or what he had done to them. Joseph didn't do that. No revenge that. And then the ones in the New Testament there. And then there's a slide here about the providence of God. And I'll tell you up front, I don't understand all about that. I don't know how it all works. So did some of these things that happened in this study we had today, was providence of God involved? When they came down and told Saul about the Philistines attacking to put him away from hunting David, bringing Saul into the cave where David was. Was that providence of God doing that so this lesson could be applied? I don't know. I don't understand all about providence. I do know that Ecclesiastes 9, things happen. I do all know also that God's in control of the forces of nature. He uses them. So I just leave that with you to think about some. I don't know the answer to that. Somebody's got some strong comments about that. We'll talk about it, but I don't. Sure. And that's the point. We don't know when God's acting in a way that's going to cause things to line up and happen, or but it's not. And then the strong lesson here that we need to get, we talked about this already, it's overcoming evil with good. Lessons for us in these New Testament passages here. You know, overcome with evil, but overcome evil with what? With good. Okay, and that's exactly what David did. David had a chance to be overcome with evil. Saul was there, he could put an end to all this stuff. He didn't. He overcame his evil with good. Big lesson for us up there to think about. Don't get caught up in evil around us. Okay, Wednesday night, lesson 10, chapter 25, 26, and 27, along with Psalm 63. Read that ahead of time. 25, 26, and 27. Psalm 63. Okay, thank you very much.